In today's video, I thought it would be rather interesting to read together some of the candid reviews that I saw on a couple of different websites. One of them is called bestplacestolive.com. There was actually maybe one of the comments that was very involved and in-depth, and I thought that's worth sharing. And then niche.com. So if you're interested in reading through them and discussing them, and then stick around because we're getting after it right now. Hey, thanks for joining us on our channel. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, tap the notification bell, because we put out videos every single week on what it's like to live in Portland, neighborhoods, all things Portland, and we'd love for you to be a part of our community. So hit the subscribe button. And also, if you're planning on making a move and you want experience on your side, my team member Erica and I, we have lived and worked in the real estate industry for over 20 years here. So we'd love the opportunity to connect with you, call, email, or text. We are on standby. So the first website we're going to read reviews off of is bestplaces.net. And there's a lot of data on this website. Some of it you have to go through a paywall, but the reviews you don't have to pay for. And I don't know about you, but I'm big on reviews. I believe whenever I'm gonna go vacation somewhere or I'm gonna use a service, I read reviews. I wanna see the good, the bad, the ugly. I don't care what people are talking about. I can make up my own decision based on enough data. So I decided that I would do maybe semi-blind review of reading reviews on living in Portland. Now, it's no surprise Portland has had its challenges over the last few years. We continue to have challenges. Are they as bad as people make them out to be? Are there people that actually are satisfied with living in Portland? Well, I think you'll find today's reviews rather interesting, and I haven't read all the reviews in advance, so just so you know, we're kind of going in blind on some of these, but I thought I would give you my input after we go through each review. So if that's of interest to you, let's get after it. All right, the first review is pretty long, but worth kind of working our way through it. I thought it was very thoughtful. It was the one review that stood out to me that made me realize it was important to maybe do a video on reviews of living in the Portland metro area. So let's read through it and then let's discuss. So this reviewer came in March of 2023. I'm making a note about the date because if you were making a review back in 2020 or 2021, you might have had a lot more of a bias on how Portland lives today versus then. So this person says, I lived in Portland for 19 years. I've also lived in Boise, the Bay Area, Austin, Texas, and Napa, Idaho. It drives me nuts when people try to give a large city a single identity. It's a large city with all sorts of people, neighborhoods, problems, and perks. I didn't live in Portland through the COVID BLM meltdown, and from my friend's perspective, it was scary and sad. That being said, it was a countrywide problem movement that affected every large city and lots of smaller ones. The press coverage of the rioting in a city that I love was sad to watch, and the damage will take years to recover from, but it did not define Portland in any way except to show that lots of people care about social justice, and a small percentage of those people think that violence is justified, and they got the media's attention. I have faith that Portland will continue to move forward in the slow way that city governments move towards addressing its issues in the same way that other large cities are scrambling to find ways to address these very difficult and hard to solve problems. There's not a country in the world that doesn't have homelessness. In the meantime, raging on the city because it's white and hipster doesn't make sense. Like attracts like, and that is what happened for almost 200 years. It takes a long time to overcome from diversity caused by Oregon's 1844 Black exclusion laws. Lack of diversity doesn't make the people of Portland racist, but it does deprive them of things that cultural diversity brings to a city. Hopefully, as it eventually moves more diverse, it will become more interesting. I didn't notice the lack of diversity as much because I lived on the east side, which is far more diverse than the west, until you get further out in the burbs near the big tech companies. I rarely felt unsafe in Portland unless I had to park in an area known for drug dealing, every city's problem. The unhoused population in general doesn't make you feel unsafe. They make you feel uncomfortable, and those are very different things, not to be confused with each other. It is uncomfortable to know that you have what you need and they do not. We should not fear them, for in different circumstances we could be them. Being unhoused does not make you a criminal. Portland is moving far too slowly to implement solutions for this population. This is true, but again, this isn't a Portland problem. It's a large city problem and frankly a national problem. Portland is full of interesting people, beautiful landscapes, beautiful views of mountains and rivers, fantastic food, and lots of small, cool businesses. The weather is mild. The risks are earthquakes. There's a big one coming. Yeah, maybe. Flooding in low areas and wildfires, though luckily not to the level of Northern California yet. The walking, hiking is great in town, everywhere around it. There's a lot of rain and it's hard to get used to. Really hard if you're susceptible to seasonal affective disorder, but it makes it green and beautiful and very easy to get used to. I miss it terribly. Aesthetically, it has year-round beauty which I really miss living in a high desert area now. I miss the food. Oh my God, I miss the food. If you are conservative politically and want to be surrounded by people of like mind, you will need to be strategic. It's a liberal city to the point that some tax that pass are not well thought through, but pass anyway because they sound good to liberal-minded people. As a liberal who grew up in a very conservative place, Portland was eye-opening for me. But as with everything in the past 7 years, politics tend to teeter towards the extremes, and I have to remind my liberal friends in Portland that not everyone sees the way they do, and a friendly conversation with a neighbor should probably not include politics. I now live where I grew up, and boy, is it a different political attitude around here. Is Portland for everyone? No. Is Portland unsafe? A question I am asked a lot. No. As someone else suggested, look up the violent crime stats. Will someone steal your bike if you leave it leaning against your garage? Probably. Petty theft was a frustrating problem in my close-in northeast high-cost neighborhood. Would I move back? Yep. Good airport, 2 hours to the ocean, 1.5 hours to good skiing, fishing, water skiing in the Columbia, 3 hours to Seattle, 3.5 hours to Bend, symphony, ballet, Broadway, travel shows, great concerts, lots of cool small venues, on and on. That's a review from Amy out of Austin, Texas. I'm sorry it took so long to read it, but I wanted to read hers because I thought it was very thoughtfully written. She's saying all the things that those of us who live here know about, and it's a fair review. I think when we go to extremes in talking about Portland and you see all those comments of like, Portland sucks, it's a garbage dumpster fire, yada, yada. It's just not a fair way to represent Portland. I understand where some of that vitriol is coming from, especially if you maybe survived living here during COVID and you just saw the riots and you were seeing the homeless kind of just, at its worst. But has it gotten better? Yeah, we don't have riots right now in Portland. So the thing I want to say about this is she's dead on. Let's talk about one thing that's, the elephant in the room, which is the politics. If you are a conservative, and believe it or not, we have a lot of conservatives in and around the Portland area. In fact, outside of Portland, it's very red. However, a lot of conservatives, politically speaking, find it difficult to live here because we do have such liberal values and very, very liberal leadership. So if you're somebody who's conservative, then typically I find those people are very, very unhappy or disgruntled about the leadership. Actually, I've heard Democrats as well and liberals talk about the leadership being the challenge. But more than anything, if you're not a liberal or fall in that side of your politics, you're going to find it very uncomfortable at times to live here. So just be aware of that. There are people that share your beliefs in the politics, and there are organizations in which you can get involved in, but in general, you're just not going to feel satisfied, in my opinion. That's what I've gathered from a lot of people who are very, very conservative in their viewpoints. And quite frankly, we lost a lot of people during COVID who were conservative who moved out into red states for obvious reasons. So that was a very hot button time. People didn't want to be told what to do, and it divided our country a lot, right? Safety. So she talks a lot about, did she feel uncomfortable? Now, obviously this person who wrote this wasn't living here the last few years, it sounds like, but she's right. If you leave a bike unattended anywhere in the inner part of Portland, there is a good chance your bike's going to get stolen. There's a lot of petty crime. There was a lot of car type crimes happening, and still do. I think every inner city has that. We just got really bad over the last few years. So you have to take precautions, especially if you live in the inner cities. Now, I think everybody has a different vantage point of safety. okay? My viewpoint of safety might be very, very different than people who are used to living in big cities. If you've lived in a big city, some of the stuff we have going on in Portland is just another day in a city, right? You take proper precautions for safety, you do what you know to do. But those of us who maybe lived and grew up in the burbs, we have a very different view of safety, in my opinion. I think that stands very true for a lot of people. Urban versus suburban safety, I find is a big thing. So that is a little bit subjective, but she is right. I mean, she gave a very true viewpoint about like the diversity. While we are very inclusive here in Portland, our diversity is lacking. You will find more diversity out in the tech area because we bring in a lot of people from all over the world. But in general, we don't have as much diversity as you would think being a city. But the biggest point I want to make in wrapping up this review is that she talked about how Portland is full of interesting people, landscaping, you're really close to the mountains, the rivers, outdoor activities, like yes, the weather is mild, and if you're, not okay with dark and rainy, a lot of the year you might struggle. But in general, we just don't have a lot of major natural disasters, and all of that's worth it when the spring, summer, and fall hit because it's absolutely gorgeous, green, beautiful out here. We don't really have a fire problem per se, although I will say we do get the smoke from usually central and southern Oregon when there are fires brewing. So just to kind of wrap up this particular review, I think this was a super fair assessment of Portland and how to think about it. And again, it all depends on what you're looking for in lifestyle, but I would give this a 10 out of 10. So the second review from bestplacestolive.net is from somebody who is headlining this as Houston Transplant 2022 review. So they left this review in October of 2022. Again, I'm referencing the date because depending on what year you moved here or lived here, it might affect your bias, right? This person gave a 4 out of 5 star review. Pretty fair, right? Not quite a 5-star, but not bad. I moved from Houston to Portland about 1 year ago. I remember reading the reviews on here and it making me second guess before I did. So I wanted to come back and follow up. Now this one's key because this is somebody who was actually a little nervous about reading the reviews that they heard about. First thing to note, the city is gorgeous. True statement. Almost everywhere you look, there is dense, well-maintained greenery. Even in the middle of the winter, you can smell roses and other flowers throughout the city. The traffic is outstanding for a city this size, so as long as you avoid the various bridges during rush hour times, those can get really annoying. The people are really calm and overall pretty friendly and welcoming. I had a hard time making friends over here at first, but that was mostly a result of my social situation and the attitude of live and let live. It hasn't been nearly like what others had described at the Seattle-Portland freeze. If you're having trouble finding a social group to connect with, you can fix that pretty easily so long as you take it upon yourself to go to social events, talk to people, and set plans. There was a large homeless problem that was pretty obvious, but since COVID hit and every landlord in America all at once decided to become opportunistic profiteers, most cities out of the Pacific coastal area are barely any better. If you drive through Miami, Austin, New York City, etc., you won't be surprised or overwhelmed by how much worse it is. Every major city is struggling with these issues nowadays, and fear-mongering is mostly a byproduct of the right-wing smear campaign against coastal elites, as well as good old-fashioned classism. I'd recommend looking at crime stats for the area and comparing them to another city. You'll see what I'm talking about. If you really want to laugh, compare them to the red state big cities. It's expensive both in terms of gas and real estate, but if you've done research by using cost of living comparisons, you're already prepared for it. If it's affordable, you should absolutely live here. It's beautiful, peaceful, and friendly. That is Josh, now currently living in Portland, originally from Houston. So I think Josh has hit on some really good points. I think he also did a fair assessment. He opened by saying he was worried. He read a lot of reviews. Like if you read all the stuff in the headlines, you're going to hear about Portland. But he came back on here because he felt it was important for people to know that it wasn't quite as bad. And usually what I say is if you've lived in a big city or you've been into big cities recently, almost every major big city has issues right now. It's just to what level. We're just on the headline news a lot more, I think, than most. He talks about how absolutely gorgeous it is here. So if being able to get off an airplane and seeing the mountains, the valleys, the rivers, the hills, all of that year round, it is gorgeous here. I mean, literally I have people flying in from all over the world and they always, the first 48 hours they're here, like, my God, it's beautiful here. We get used to it living here. I've lived here my entire life. I'm used to seeing the brilliancy of and the majesty of it all. But honestly, when people come from like flat states, especially where it's just desert or flat and there's not a lot going on, they're blown away. In fact, I have a Florida person that always comes and says, my gosh, there's Christmas trees everywhere. I always think that's really cute. The people are really calm and overall friendly and welcoming. I want to speak to that. I get that comment a lot from people who move here from other areas. I had a client about a little over a year ago who could not believe how friendly people were. She was blown away. She knew nobody when she moved here. She actually told me it was a delight leaving her house and going to shops and restaurants and retail because literally people were so dang friendly. And I would say that's really true. I've heard that all along the way. We don't have that harsh East Coastness. We kind of have a mix of a chill vibe mixed with just calm and friendly. I think that's pretty true. You'll notice it when you're driving around town. People just let you go into traffic. They're like, hey, come on in, whereas I know a lot of people kind of base the friendliness of a town based on how the traffic goes. Do people cut you off or are they letting you in? And I would say in general, Portland's pretty friendly. Talked about the realities of large homeless problems in major cities, not just ours. And that is expensive. West Coast cities tend to definitely be more expensive with our gas prices and real estate. Portland tends to be the least expensive than, California or Washington. But yeah, it's expensive. So definitely do your cost of living search. But I would think overall, I would give this, I'd say 10 out of 10 for a review. I agree with that. The 4 out of 5 stars based on what he said is pretty true. Okay, the next review I'm going to share with you is a lot shorter than the other two, but it's also only a 1-star review. Ooh, gosh, I'm almost scared to read it. What is this person going to say? How bad is it according to this person? But you know what? We have to be fair in our reviews. I told you I'd keep it really candid today, so that's what we're doing. So this person wrote the review in April of 2022 on bestplaces.net. Depressing, please go somewhere else, maybe, is the subject line, maybe. So there's a little hope there. It says, I've lived half of my life in Seattle and half now in Portland. I love these cities growing up, but in recent years, it's going downhill. Finally moved to Boston. Portland has a special place in my heart. The old Portland still does. I remember going to downtown with family, enjoying the local dining spots. These days, it's been 3 years. I don't even want to go. Last time I went to visit my friend, we were harassed by this crazy guy. I don't feel safe in the city, and talk to any local Portlanders and you'll hear from them. A lot of people that live there basically hate this place. I have friends who are dying to get the hell out of there. And that's Nisha from Bethany. Well, there you go. There's a 1-star review. So this person's basically saying Portland's gone downhill. I would agree with that to some degree. Truthfully, after COVID, it did go downhill. We lost a lot of businesses in downtown. Now, I have to preface by saying that I don't actually go downtown, and I never have been a big downtowner. I would go down there every once in a while for a fine dining experience or a cool new experience, or maybe some shopping here and there. But I honestly didn't frequent it as much as a lot of people chose to. So I didn't actually spend a lot of time down there, but I know a lot of people who do. So if you're into the downtown scene, you're gonna absolutely feel like it went completely to crap. And in truth, it has. In the sense that, number one, a lot of businesses couldn't make it during COVID. And then after COVID, a lot of businesses just moved out because they didn't want to deal with all of the homeless crazy issues that had happened down there. People didn't feel safe. They clearly don't feel safe. And so they're not going to renew their leases and continue their business down there. And quite frankly, a lot of commercial type buildings in downtown are selling for a fraction of what they used to sell for because they're struggling. They're struggling to get tenants to sign up for new businesses there, to renew. And quite frankly, if you're a business owner, you got to make smart decisions right now about business because it's never been harder. It's very difficult. And so a lot of tax revenue has left the core of downtown Portland. And I think it's going to take a long time for Portland to figure out how to bring that revenue back. Do I believe and feel that eventually we will? I do. I am one of those people that believes Portland is going to make a comeback. I think a lot of people are going to scoop up a whole bunch of deals, whether you're a commercial purchaser for buildings or you're into the condo scene downtown, which has struggled since COVID. But do I think it's donezo? I don't think it's donezo, but it's going to take time. And Portland's going to have to figure out how to attract businesses to be back there. We just got news this week that the U.S. Bank, which has always been in the pink, we call it the pink building, the US Bancorp Tower, they're even leaving. And so there's a lot of distress going on in downtown Portland. Now, As I've gone into downtown Portland since COVID, it has cleaned up a lot. Businesses are coming back, especially if you stay in certain areas of the downtown area. I don't feel scared to go down there and have lunch with a friend or whatnot. But again, those are certain areas. And I know Portland is trying, because even in the last year, they sent out notices to business owners that if you sign a 5-year lease in downtown Portland, they're going to give you like, I think it was like $250,000 in tax incentives or something. So I know Portland knows this is an issue, and it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. But if you spend a lot of time in downtown Portland, then yeah, your opinion of Portland is going to be a lot lower. There's a lot of people that don't spend a lot of time in downtown Portland, and that opinion is very different. So I think for this person, since they did go downtown a lot, that review is fair from their perspective. And yes, for a lot of us who were born and raised here, it has been hard to watch Portland go through its challenges and continue to go through its challenges. But do I think Portland has done so? No, I think we're going to eventually make a comeback. And in some ways we have. So maybe I'm being overly optimistic. Feel free to drop your comments below, but that's just my opinion on this 1-star review. Okay, now we're going to hop over to niche.com, which is another great website to do a lot of homework on Portland, various neighborhoods of Portland, to get a lot of information. And they have reviews as well. So I'm going to jump into the first review and let's see what they have to say. It's a 5-star review, you guys. Okay, does Portland deserve a 5-star review? Let's find out. Portland is a fantastically weird and diverse city. Here, they think it's diverse, with an abundance of businesses and public services, each with their own charm and quality. Within our city, you can find some of the most fantastic ethical grocery and supply markets, such as the year-round farmer markets operated by the People's Food Consumer Co-op, or the Equal Exchange Supply Market that has a wide consortium of goods ranging from ethically sourced coffee to olive oil. If you're a foodie, this is your paradise, as almost any type of food you can think of will have a dedicated restaurant run by small business owners that will greet you with a smile and leave you feeling delighted in your choice. Breaking away from food, take a look at our fantastic Oregon Zoo or Portland Art Museum, with cheap entrance fees, and experience that will absolutely blow you away. And while you're at it, take a look at one of our sports or convention centers that will almost always have something going on. Enough blabbering, visit our city. Okay. So this is a very optimistic, wonderful review of Portland. This person appreciates, the co-ops and the farmer markets. We have great farmer markets. Almost every city or area in our Portland area has farmers markets, some better than others. But who doesn't love a good farmers market? They typically start in like the May timeframe and go till the end of the summer. And they're wonderful, and they're worth visiting. The foodie paradise is real. So just to give some perspective, we're kind of known as a foodie town. And the thing that we don't have a lot of is franchises. Yes, we have fast food restaurants and franchise restaurants, but it's not like other cities where it's just all franchise. We have a ton of niche type food. And that is what gives Portland some of its reasons that people love the lifestyle here, because she's right. Most of the food experiences here are rich with culture, or if you're looking for a very specific type of food, you got it here. Also, the food cart scene. I mean, I could go on and on about the food. Just look it up. It's like why #1 people come here. Oh, by the way, this review was 25 days ago. So this is a fresh review, 2024 review. I think that's important to note. Overall, this person is very excitable about Portland and didn't really talk about any of the negatives. So they're experiencing the lifestyle of Portland at its finest. And I think I love it. I think I like the review. They're not talking about the negatives because they're still enjoying all the great things about Portland. So let's get to another review. Okay, the last review we're gonna cover is a 3 out of 5 stars, okay? And this was done 9 days ago. And again, this is somebody's opinion, and let's just read through it and talk about it. Being born in Portland, I've lived there on and off for 30 years. It's changed, and not for the best. The city's pretty run down and full of homeless. Identity politics is everywhere. There's a high chance you might step on human feces or a needle, no matter what part of Portland you're in. Portland consistently finishes top 10 in the US for auto theft. Watch Cadillac Converter. Looking outside of that, it's a beautiful city. You're no more than 10 minutes from a hiking trail, plenty of outdoor and water activities. The food scene is amazing. Pair that with the microbreweries and bars, it becomes a great time. Portland has potential to be amazing. Again, it's just the political climate will have to change. So that's another one where they're kind of telling you the checks and the balances, right? They're telling you, hey, the homeless thing is a problem, the drug scene is a problem, but overall there's still a lot going on that's great about Portland. And if we can make a turnaround, then it's gonna revive itself. So I think there is a balance right now of a lot of people who feel like Portland is going to make a turnaround. It's just going to take a lot of change and time. And then there's people who've just kind of, you know, maybe given up on it and either move out of the state and go somewhere else, or, you know, they're kind of cautiously optimistic about what's going to happen. But either way, I think all of these reviews are fairly fair depending on your perspective and where you might be living or have lived in the Portland metro area. And it depends on your lifestyle. You know, if you're looking for certain things in what area you want to live in, then you might be okay putting up with other stuff about Portland. And we always say, come visit, come check it out, find out if it's worth your while. Some people come and they absolutely fall in love with it. And yes, they understand there are negative things about the city. There might be negative things about the city they're coming from, but they just make a choice to have the negative things over here versus the negative things over there. But either way, I think a lot of these reviews are fair. I don't think anything was completely off board, but you can see there's a lot of opinions about different things, and it affects the way people make their reviews and score them. So I hope you guys find this helpful. If you have any comments, I'm sure you do. I'm sure there's going to be those people on here that want to hate on Portland, but seriously, I'd love to see your comments about what you thought of these reviews, and maybe you have a review of the city you'd like to put down, or if there's something we missed, drop it in the comments below, and we'll see you on the next video.